Hello all, I'm Michael Kagiri and welcome to our lecture on MySQL user account management. So in this particular lecture, we are going to see how do we create users within MySQL. We're also going to see how do we remove users. Then we're also going to see how do we assign permissions. And lastly, we're also going to see how we revoke permissions. So to begin with, we are going to see that MySQL stores accounts of users within a table that we refer to as user. And we are going to begin by trying to see where we actually access that particular table. We get to see which are the users that are currently registered or have currently been created. And so to do that, I'll be presuming that you have already launched your MySQL, as I've done in my case. And so to do that, we first of all run the first command, which we are going to refer to as show databases. When we run that command, we are going to see a list of the different databases. One thing that you need to note is that the particular database that normally contains the user's information is a database called MySQL. So to switch to MySQL database, we need to say use MySQL, and we are going to get the output that database has been changed. And in that given case, we would want to access the user table. So to do that, we just need to run the command that enables us to see all the tables that are in the MySQL database. So we need to run the command show tables, and we are going to see a whole list of many particular tables, but of importance is we need to focus on the user table, which appears at the bottom. And so for us to be in a position to see which are the fields that exist in this particular table, we use the command for describe. And when we do that, we are going to see a whole list of fields that are actually form that particular table. Now we may, if we run a command, we might not be in a position to get a well organized view, but the most important thing is that we are going to look at 4 important fields, and we are going to be writing a command to select those 4. So the first one is the hosts, the second one is the user, and then the password. Now we are going to select the fourth one as the select privilege, and we are going to see that the different privileges, whether it's to select, to insert, to update, to delete, to create, the options are either a no or a yes. And so what we are going to be seeing is how do we change so that we assign a user a particular permission or we deny a user a particular permission. So to write the command, we just need to say select, then we say hosts, the next field is user, then password, then the next command is select underscore priv. We say from user. When we run that particular command, we are going to see that we'll get an output showing us the different users that are currently registered in your given MySQL. You can see in my case, I have a user called root, and that user does not have a password. So that's the reason as to why whenever I launch into MySQL, I just need to provide the username. I'm not prompted to enter the password. Under the privileges, you can see that the yes, so that means that the current default user has been assigned a particular password, has been assigned the select privileges, and it's for that reason as to why that user is able to run that given command. So how would we log into MySQL as a different user? So we'd want to see how we can launch our MySQL from the command prompt so that we can be in a position to log in as the root. So to do that, you just need to go to your start menu and you type the cmd command, when you type the cmd command on your start menu, it's going to appear. You click on it so that you're able to launch it, and once you launch it, we need to copy the path that contains our MySQL service, and it's normally stored within the bin file. So to access that, we need to click on start. We go to my PC or my computer, you navigate to drive C, you go to program files, you look for where MySQL is, and then you look at the given installation of MySQL. There's a folder called bin, and then you copy this so that you can be able to launch the MySQL service. Then after that, when we come back to our cmd, we need to change the directory to the bin by saying cd, and then we paste that particular path, and we are there. We are now into the bin directory. So to launch MySQL from that, we normally type this given command, MySQL, you put a hyphen u, you say root, then you say -p. So u means username, and as we had seen previously is that my username is root. So currently my password is blank, so there is no password that I'm going to put. However, if your user account has a password, when you press enter, you normally get prompted to enter the password. So in case your user has a particular password, then you're supposed to enter the password at that given point, and once you enter the given password, you press enter again, and we still do the same. We try to access the user table from the MySQL database. So we're going to run the command show databases, and we are going to see a list of databases. So we select MySQL, and then database is going to be changed. We are going to write the command to enable us to show tables within that given database, and we are going to be listed the different tables, and then we are going to describe user so that we get to see which are the different fields. So you can see that even when we log in, we are still able to achieve almost the different aspects we had done initially. So again, if you would want to run the same set of command we had run, you can say select host, then comma user, then password, then in this given case we can use the insert privilege. So I can say insert privilege from user, and you can see that we are able to view those particular sets of users. So in this given case, we are now, because we have logged in as the user, and we can see the different privileges that are accorded or that are assigned to the user table. We are going to see how can we create a user. So to create a user, first of all, you need to ensure that the user you have logged in has the rights to actually achieve that, and we are going to be seeing that in a short while. So the command to actually create a user is create, then user. It's normally followed by the name of the username that you want to create for that particular user. So in this given case, I could have a username called student. Then you need to associate that particular student with the particular host. So in our case, the host we are dealing with is the local host, where our MySQL has actually been installed. Then every user is identified with a password or is associated with some particular password. So, and then we can provide maybe password, maybe something like pass1, maybe 1 2 3 command like that. Now, one thing that you need to note is that the username, the host name, and the password, they all have to appear within the single quotes to imply that they are text characters or they are string. So when we run this particular command, we are going to see query OK. and when we see that query OK, it means that our user has actually been created. We can repeat the initial command, and we are going to see that the user we have just created is going to appear below there. Now the next thing that we would want to see is how would we drop. Suppose we wanted to delete this particular user, how would we do it? So to delete the user, we normally use the command drop, and then you say user, and then you provide the username for the user that you want to delete. So you say student, and then you say @ then localhost, and then you put your semicolon. When you run enter, the user is actually removed, and if you run the command to select, you're going to see that the user that we have just created ceases to exist. So the next thing is, then how do we re-add the user that we have just added? Then that means we need to redo the command that we had typed for creating the user, which in this given case, that's the command. Then after that, we can actually just type the command create user, and then when we press enter, the user is going to be created, and we can confirm that the user has been created by running that particular command. You can see that the user exists. So now the next thing is, how do we log into MySQL as the new user? So to log into MySQL as the new user, we have to exit or log out as the root so that we are able to log in as the new user. So to do that, we first of all need to take note of our username, and we need to take note of our password. So we normally use the command /q when you want to log out of MySQL, and if I do that, I'm actually going to be logged out, and I can now log into MySQL as the new user. So the student, the password was pass123, and I've logged into MySQL. Now one thing you are going to realize is that the new user is going to have limited permissions, as we are going to see by default. If I type the command show databases, and you're going to see that the user is only able to see very few databases. You can take note that the MySQL database where the user existed is no longer accessible to this particular user. So that means that the user cannot be in a position to access the user table. So it's only the root or another user who has been assigned all the privileges who might be in a position to do that. But by default, you're going to realize that the users or that you create are going to be having a bit of some privileges denied from them, and that's the reason as to why now in the next section we are going to be looking at how do we assign privileges to this particular user. So we are going to log out as the student and log in back as the root, so that we can be in a position to assign certain permissions to this particular user, and we test to see whether that user can achieve that. Want to create a database, like we are going to test with this particular command, the user gets an error, so meaning that the user has no permissions. So you can see that the user gets access denied. So if you would want this user to be in a position to carry out particular tasks, and then we are going to log out and log in as the root and be in a position to see how can we assign such a user the permission to actually create a database, and then we are going to come and log in and confirm that actually now a user, this particular student user, can actually create a database. So at the moment you can see that when we attempt to create a database code testing using this particular user called student, the user gets an access denied error. So we are going to log out and now log in as the root -u root -p. We don't have a password, so we are going to shift to our MySQL, and then before we demonstrate on how to assign permissions, it's good we first of all discuss the different sets of privileges that we normally have. We normally have a number of privileges. The first option is what is referred to as all privileges. When you assign a user the all privileges, then that means that a user is able to access all, or the user has access to all the particular database within the particular system. There's also another privilege called create, which allows users to actually create tables or create databases. We have a privilege called drop, which allows users to delete tables or delete databases. We have a command called delete, which allows users to delete rows from particular tables. We have a privilege called insert, which allows users to insert rows into tables. We have a privilege called select, which allows users to use the select command to retrieve information from particular tables. We have the command called update, which allows users to update rows. And we have the privilege called grant option, which allows particular users to either grant or remove other users' privileges. So to begin with, we now log out as the student by typing that given command, and we log in as the root, which in this given case root -p. And what we are going to do is grant, we say all on. We want in this given case to say all databases, and then to all the tables within those databases to the students localhost. Then once we do that, to make these privileges take effect, we normally use the command flash privileges. When you run that particular command, it means that the permissions we have granted actually take effect. So we are going to log out as the current user, which in this case is root, and we are going to log in as the student, and we are going to be confirming whether now the current user can actually view all the databases. So we are going to say show databases, and you can see now the user is able to view all the particular databases. Now to revoke that particular permission, we are going to see that we use the revoke command so that we remove that permission. Of course, it's not a good thing to assign a particular user permissions or to grant access to all the particular databases. So we are going to see how we can actually grant access to a particular database instead of granting access to all the given databases. So to do that, we quit and we log in again as the root. And in this given case, we are first of all going to revoke all the permissions. And to do that, we normally use the revoke command. So we say revoke or on all the database and all the tables, then from students at localhost. Then after that, we say flash privileges. And by doing that, we can actually log out and we log in as the user class 1, 2, 3. And when we now run the command show databases, we can see that all the databases that we had initially assigned grant privilege has now been revoked. If you would want to assign permission to a particular database, in this given case, for instance, we are going to see we may want to assign a privilege to a particular database, for example, theme pack. What we need to do is we log in again as the root. We have our given databases. So in the event that I would want to assign the theme pack database to the access to the theme pack database to the student user, what I'm going to simply do is to say grant or on, then I'll say theme pack, then I say dot. If I say dot asterisk, that means all the tables within theme pack, but I can as well specify the particular table that I want to grant access to. So then I say to student, then at localhost. So in this given case, we're saying grant or on the name of our database, the given all the tables that exist within that given database, and we are assigning it to that particular user. Then of course we say flash privileges so that the command takes effect. So if we now quit and we log in as that particular user, pass 1 2 3, and we say show databases, you can see that the theme pack database is now appearing. Now within this particular database, we are now going to say to revoke a particular privilege from the student user, i.e. we may want to deny the student the ability to run a select command from a particular table within the theme pack database. So let's see how we can do that. So we are going to log in as the root, and then we use the command revoke, then we say select, then we say on, the database is theme pack, then we can say from all the tables that exists within the given theme pack, from then student at localhost, then we flash privileges. So what we have simply done is that we are denying the privilege, or we are denying student the privilege of selecting or running the select command from any of the tables that exist within the theme pack database. So to test that out, we quit and we are going to log in as the student. It's pass 1 2 3, and then we are going to say use theme pack, or you can use whichever database that may exist. So let's confirm the tables that do exist. Command, and we say select all from attraction, and you see what we get. We get the command, or we get an error stating that the user student has been denied the select command. And that marks the end of our lecture on MySQL user account management. You can test with the rest of the particular commands in the same manner. In case of any question, you can leave a comment